Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. I'm your host, Dave Vance. Tonight our guest is Don Barnett, a fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. Don just returned from a trip to the border at Eagle Pass, and we will be discussing what he saw and learned from his trip down there. But first, if you have an announcement from a conservative organization that you would like broadcast on our show, please send the information to tninformer.tv@gmail.com the Friday before the show. The Stewart County GOP will meet this Thursday, April 25th, 6:30 at the Stewart County Visitor Center. Our speaker will be candidate for state senate in the 24th District, Charles Cooper. Now to our guest, Don Barnett. Mr. Barnett has been a fellow with the Center for Immigration Studies since 2003. He gained his expertise in immigration and refugee policy during an assignment to the USSR while deployed with USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development. Having received an MBA from State University of New York, he's an application software developer and has worked for Unisys, Goldman Sachs, and Deloitte Consulting. Don, thank you for being with us. How are you doing?
Great. Dave.
Well, glad to have you. You just got back Saturday from the border, so I'll definitely have some questions for you, and I'm sure you've got a lot of things that the audience is going to want to hear. So what part of the border did you go to other than Eagle Pass?
Well, we started off in Del Rio, which is a little bit north of Eagle Pass. We hit Del Rio, talked to a couple folks there, talked to a federal judge, talked to Border Patrol union officials, and then went to Eagle Pass. And from there, we again talked with officials, talked with bloggers, then went across the border to the neighboring town in Mexico. And as well spent a little time in San Antonio. There's a very large processing center in San Antonio. Just to give you an idea how large that processing center is, it's run by an NGO, and the NGO is Catholic Charities, which is the biggest operator down there. They've processed and sent to the interior of the United States 800,000 migrants in the last 2 years.
Wow. Wow.
So that's what we're talking, and you can't even get into it. It looks like it's like a tiny little empty building, but if you open the doors and look in, it's massive. So yeah, those were the three basic geographical locations we hit: Del Rio, Eagle Pass, and San Antonio.
And so, what did you hear from the locals?
Well, the locals are surprisingly up in arms over it. In fact, Republicans have done pretty well. Republicans in the border counties, even though the border counties are registered Democrat, hovering in the 90% area, and Hispanic easily 90%, 95%. Some of the counties went red last cycle, and they're saying that they will all go red, at least as far as the presidential election this time around. We spoke with Maverick County Republican Party chairman and people running for sheriff in various counties. Very interesting, just very, very stimulating. It's kind of strange to get so interested in this topic, but it sort of gets under your skin. And talking to the various people, getting their views. Everyone we talked to was on our side. Usually we try to get in a dissident. We just didn't find one this time around.
Wow. You mentioned earlier before the show that you talked to a judge down there. Can you tell us anything about that?
Sure. The judge was a person who grew up there, grew up on the border. I found the judges, we tend to think that the judges are soft on some of this crime. She had a lot to say about immigration and associated crime. For example, one of the cases that she's involved with most involve transport of illegals from the border to interior, and that's all done via WhatsApp and social networking. So they basically put an ad out, make either somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 per head to deliver somebody from the border to New York or Chicago, New Jersey. On the face of it, it's not. I mean, of course, anyone seeing an ad like that would think, there must be something to this. But technically, we've all done various weird jobs in our lives, like driving cars across the country to deliver to a dealer or something like that. It could look a little like that. Of course, it isn't. It's a criminal operation run by the cartels, but they get brand new people to come out and do this, to pick up a load of illegals and bring them to northern cities. She said that, interestingly enough, many of the drivers, the transport people, are women, are girls. So, and lots of, you know, drug addiction and the usual sad story that goes with that.
Right. So do they think the
All,
cartel
all
uses?
organized via social networks and WhatsApp.
Do they think they use the women because they think maybe they'll draw less suspicion, or did they have any theories on that?
It's quite possible. She said that about, I think she said the judge said that most of the cases in her court involve illegal transportation, and that about half of the defendants were women. Um, I don't know. I don't know if the people making the selection, it's quite possible that's one reason why they do want to pick somebody that's not going to arouse interests.
Right.
So they do want somebody with kind of a nice car and things like that. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So what kind of what kind of charges are they facing? Are they getting they have a high conviction rate?
I think they have a fairly high conviction rate. Honestly, I can't speak to what the what kind of charges that or what kind of sentences get doled out. But interestingly enough, the judge did say that the Hispanic juries are much harsher in all of her immigration cases than the Anglo juries. So
Wow.
now that region is mostly Hispanic, but you would occasionally get an Anglo jury. They're much softer, much more likely to to uh, let it go. Yeah.
Wow. So this time
The,
down there, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was also going to say the judge made a huge impression as far as credibility, and made the statement that the type of migrant that's coming over the border has changed drastically over the last few years. And we heard this a few times. We heard this. They will say something like, well, it just has changed. It used to be migrants that really were coming over to work. Now it's migrants coming over to make trouble. And this judge stated twice, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when there will be another 9/11, based on the people that have been pouring into the country. And they've been pouring in at huge numbers, and they're still pouring in. They've slowed down a little bit, but it's still historically very high. Not quite as bad as it was last year. And there's a reason for that.
What's the reason for that?
Well, the reason for it is it started to look really bad for the Biden administration. Um, the large crowd of Haitians that gathered under the bridge in Del Rio, remember, from September 2021. And then there were large similar buildups in Del Rio. And there two forces came into play here. Number one, the Texas Highway Patrol, Texas Public Safety, basically said we can do a better job at protecting the border than the feds, and they've literally kicked out the Federal Border Patrol in some parts of Eagle Pass, literally to ask them to leave. And so far, they have stayed out. Now it's being tangled in court now, so we don't know how it's going to work out. But you may recall that Texas Highway Patrol would put up a fence, and the feds would come along and cut the fence. That happened several times.
Wow.
You may have heard that, and this is definitely heard this everywhere. A migrant crossing the Rio Grande will avoid Texas Highway Patrol, avoid the various Texas public safety professionals, and run to Border Patrol. They literally hide from Texas Border Patrol, and they seek out the federal Border Patrol. Texas has built more effective walls. They've they're just doing a much better job. So that's one stream right there. Texas Border Patrol. And Texas has passed some laws saying if you're on private property, we're going to call that criminal trespassing. So we can arrest you based on that, criminal trespassing. So that's one avenue. The other avenue is clearly, and there's a little bit of speculation here, but I think we can safely say clearly the Biden administration has dealt with the Mexican president, Lopez Obrador, and basically asked the Mexicans to shut off the flow. Now, during the Trump administration, Trump said, if you don't shut off the flow, we're going to put a 25% tariff on your imports. So that was effective. What Biden has done is a couple of things. First of all, he has said we're going to let Mexicans come in a little bit easier, which we can talk about later, the parole program. That's number one. And we're going to give you some money, probably. And we're not sure about that, but most likely there's a big aid package waiting for AMLO. That's what they call them, AMLO. And the main thing is clearly the Mexican president does not want to see Trump win. He wants to see Biden win. And if the border is a chaotic mess, as it has been and really still is, then Biden's chances are going to go down. So they're going to do this to keep the border quiet until November. And if Biden wins, it'll be chaos like we've never seen before. And though the numbers are down and we don't see the chaotic scenes such as these pictures that are here now are all from 22 and 21. So this is not something you would see today. These kinds of scenes have moved off to California and New Mexico, perhaps in Arizona. And that's so Texas. Yeah,
that's something I wanted to ask about. Okay, are they just bringing in less, or are they just going to Arizona and California instead of Texas?
There are definitely less people coming across the border, but I'm going to go into a little more detail about what's really going on there. Typically until this year, well, let's say the last couple of years, we were getting about 10,000. In some months, we're getting 10,000 a day. Let me see if I can run it down here and put a little more clarity around it. In 2020, Border Patrol reported 400,000 apprehensions of illegal crossers, individuals crossing the border illegally, 400,000. 2023, it's over 2 million. So that tells you right there a significant increase. Right now in 2024, it's still going to come in at about 1.6 million, which is historically high, but it's not like it's heading to 3 million. It's still going to be in the area of 1.6. Now, and again, that's historically high. What's going on? What is going on is that people that would have normally come across the border are being shunted in through other programs. You probably most recently heard about the program of people flying into U.S. airports from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. So Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, they have their own special program where they're flying directly. And by the way, that's a flight line of people being shipped from Texas to the interior. They have their own line. They don't stand in the line with everybody else. I've been told they don't go through TSA. Wasn't able to confirm that, but I did confirm from that picture there that they are getting that when they load onto a commercial airline to fly from Texas to New York or Chicago or wherever it is they're going, they have their own line. So at any rate, getting back to what I was saying, there's a number of programs that have taken a little bit of pressure off the obvious people flowing over the border. When you add all those up, we have, first of all, it's gone from about 10,000 a day to 4,000 a day border crossings. But you have to add to those border crossings about 900,000 a year annually, 900,000 annually that come across through these special parole programs, one of them being CPB1. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
CPB1 is an app that you get on your cell phone, and you set up your appointment via this app. That app alone is processing 1,400 a day, 1,400 a day. It just went up, I think, to 1,450. So you add up these other ways in which they're getting in, they're still coming in technically, legally, as illegals. They don't have any immigration status. In fact, CPB1, which, like I said, processes 1,400 a day. You get on an app, you say, I want my appointment, you get your appointment. In 3 or 4 hours, you may wait a couple of days for your appointment, but the appointment lasts 3 or 4 hours. There's no vetting. There's no talk of, are you trying to get asylum? They're basically just processing them through. They're giving them a document which is called a notice to appear, which means notice to appear in court, and they're given the opportunity to apply for a work document. There's an individual holding up his notice to appear, which is a legal document, which says come to court. And in that case, he arrived like a couple days ago. His court date is more than a year in advance. It's June 2025. But he has a work document. So he's had no vetting.
He has work authorization, right?
Has a work document. Right, work authorization. He'll get a social security number. He'll get a social security number. It looks just like any average American social security number. And the reality is, in immigration legalese, that particular individual, as well as the 600,000 or so that come in on CPB1, are in what is called deportation proceedings. They're in removal proceedings. They don't have any legal status whatsoever. They are in removal proceedings. They have to get a status, either marry somebody, get asylum, apply for asylum, and succeed. It's not just a matter of applying for asylum. You have to go through court system and get someone to agree that you deserve asylum. So we have a mass of people now, about 1.6 million people, who do not have any immigration status whatsoever. They're literally, as I say, in removal proceedings. They're technically in removal proceedings. The way, and the Biden administration has just gone full flood the zone like you wouldn't believe when you think about it, because parole, for previous 10 years, parole was used about once a week. Its purpose was to, if someone was, say, sick at the border, someone was having a baby at the border, there was a need to just get this person in. That's the purpose of parole. It's a case by case, one at a time, and we look at each one and we get a number of approvals to parole somebody in. Very, very rarely used. Like I said, once a week for 10 years.
But that doesn't change their status, though, right? They're still illegal.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Well, parole, when properly used, which is for humanitarian and very specific situations, is not illegal. But the Biden administration has passed out 1.6 million parole authorizations. They've paroled in about 1.6 million. They've used the program illegally by most standards. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna make pronouncements on that. But most people agree that it is an illegal use of the program. And what Biden has done here is sort of presented Congress and all of the United States with a fait accompli. There's 1.6 million. There will certainly be soon be 2 million. And what are they going to do about it? They have a parole which is supposed to last just 2 years, which means after 2 years they're literally supposed to leave, and it's not going to happen. So basically, we're presented with this issue. The numbers are almost as high as they were in 2023. It's just that some have come in a way that's not as noticeable. Like I said, some of them are flying in directly from Caracas. Some of them are flying in directly from Nicaragua and Cuba.
So basically, illegal aliens, with the one program you mentioned, illegal aliens are making an appointment to invade our country. Is that a fairly accurate statement?
Well, they are foreign. They're foreign nationals, so they're not an illegal alien until they've been brought in an illegal system. I would say, but basically, we think that one of the deals that, in fact, we're quite sure, really, that again, the Mexicans have been very effective about shutting down the border, their border to the south, and cleaning up people that are on the border in the north. They're picking them up and deporting them down south in Mexico, 1,000 miles away. So that's pretty effective. That stops it. And again, they're doing that because we've let in Mexicans on this parole program, which is basically you get on your cell phone, you set up your appointment, and you wait. And you go in, you've got an appointment, you've got a time, and they just rush you right through. At that point, it is my opinion that they've become illegal aliens because, again, they're officially in removal proceedings, and they are the beneficiaries of an illegal system, an illegal use of a system. Joe Biden, we used to talk about Donald Trump's use of executive orders. Joe Biden has, in 3 years, he did more than 500 immigration-related executive orders. This is how he's getting all of this done. He's done more in 3 years. He did substantially more than Trump did in all of his 4 years. So this is how it's getting done: is executive orders, and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess.
It's basically policy. His policy is breaking the federal law. I mean, he is breaking federal law with what he's doing, and he's doing it through policy, and it's being allowed.
Yes. Now, I will say that about 25 states, and I'm glad to say that Tennessee is part of this, have joined a lawsuit questioning the use of parole because it's been so impactful in the numbers that it's sent, and the cities are groaning under the number of people that have come in. And there are 25 states that have joined suits. Texas and Florida have been the main leaders of a couple of these lawsuits that have sued about the use of parole for this purpose, saying that it is illegal.
So when they get parole, they're going to get work authorization. Pretty much everybody is getting work authorization when they come over, right?
Pretty much. We think that, yes, pretty much.
All right. So in Tennessee, it seems like our legislature has mistaken work authorization with some sort of legal status. And while our AG is filing these lawsuits against what the Biden administration is doing, which he should be, our state has laws it passed a law in 2022 that would give professional licenses to illegal aliens. So on one hand, we're putting up a big front here in Tennessee and acting like we are upset with what's going on. On the other hand, our state legislature passes those kind of laws and facilitates what these guys are doing.
Right. And that applies not only to these parolees, which is the biggest number by far, but also to temporary protected status, which is TPS, which is a very big number, DACA, the children. None of these people have an immigration status. Right. And the work authorization, some people are joking that the work authorization is green card light, because that's the way some legislatures are interpreting it as, hey, this person has status, this person is here. No, this person is in removal proceedings and could go before court and be deported tomorrow. So, and this person has not been vetted. This person has not even had a cursory vetting. There's been very brief vetting against some international databases, and but no vetting, even people we don't even know who we're getting. One of the things that you'll see at the border, and this is why a trip like this has a big impact, is you'll see IDs all over, strewn all over the fence. Well, that's because they had a valid ID. There's an ID same from a person that's from Mexico. There's an ID from a person from Chile, and so on and so forth. They throw away their real ID and pretend to be the flavor of the month because we favor certain groups at certain times. Like they'll throw an ID away and claim to be under 18, so they can get the free pass as an unaccompanied alien child, or they will throw away their say. Brazilian ID. We've seen this. We've seen IDs from all over the world, and claim to be from a Northern Triangle, a country, El Salvador, because we're favoring El Salvador at this time. The other ways, and the judge spoke about this too quite a bit, is they'll form like a fake family unit, because we're always after the Trump debacle with the caged children. We sort of did a reverse on that and basically said, well, okay, if you come over with children, you're going to get a free pass. So basically, what have they done? They have rented children. The judge said they had one case where a child went back and forth 7 times. In other words, came through with an adult. Hey, yeah, we're family. Okay, go on through your family. Went back to the border, came through with another adult. We're family. Okay, go on. We don't do DNA. We don't really check that you're really family. There's no time. I'll go on through 7 times. The same child, and we don't know how many times that has happened when it wasn't caught. So, yeah, I know it's unreal. It really is.
You mentioned DACA a minute ago. With DACA, I just want to make this point. And our politicians in Tennessee General Assembly seem to want to kiss the butt of all the DACA kids. Well, you have to be illegal. You have to be an illegal to be DACA. That's one of the requirements, is that you're here illegally. Yet they bend over backwards for them in Tennessee, and I'm sure other states as well. But
yeah,
those are the kids that Obama brought over here, and somehow they seem to have forgotten that.
Right, and it's a number that's as far as DACA that's here now, it's about 600,000. So it's a pretty significant number.
Wow.
And the judge had said also, I don't know. I probably shouldn't go too deeply into some detail. But at any rate, yeah, DACA is also, it's just deferred removal. They're just having deferred action. That's what that means. I certainly understand if a kid was brought over as an infant and it was the parent who it's very hard to not sympathize with that. It turns out most of these DACA kids were not brought over as infants. Some were, for sure, and we understand and can sympathize with that. But it's become like everything else, subject to so much fraud that it's mostly fraud, or to a large degree fraud. I'll tell you another system too. With some, like I said, there's like 8 separate and distinct and large programs that are bringing people in under the covers and with executive orders and so on and so forth. Some of them, as soon as you get in, you're eligible for welfare. So they're quite lucrative. If you can go in and get on welfare right away, that's quite valuable. That's quite a pull factor. Well, there is one little thing that's required, is you have to have somebody, quote, sponsor you. Well, that's turned into a real racket where people will take payment to pose as a sponsor. I mean, people come in, they were supposedly sponsored, and it turns out they're not anywhere near their, quote, sponsors, and become very heavily dependent on welfare. Most of the parolees will have to wait 5 years if because these parole terms are 2 years. But what's going to happen, of course, is we'll be forced to continually extend the parole, give them another 2 years, give them another 2 years until it's all figured out. Well, after 5 years, they become qualified for welfare. One of our analysts has figured out that it costs for each million of these that go into welfare, it's going to be like a $5 billion bill $5 billion a year annually. So we're talking huge numbers when the numbers get into the millions. And the whole sponsorship racket is just that. They're not really sponsors. Anybody can sponsor too. You don't have to be a citizen even. You can come in on one of these programs and then turn around and sponsor friends and family, and people don't even know this is going on.
They don't verify that the sponsor is a citizen?
No, there's no need to be a citizen. There's no need. All they want to do is fill out a little form showing that you are that you have the means, but that there's no requirement, there's no verification, and they don't require citizenship. Non-citizens can bring in others. So as you can see, this can quickly snowball into something very large. As you know, a non-citizen brings in somebody, and then those people bring in somebody, and those people bring in, it becomes a huge, exponentially growing number of people that are coming in.
Right. So when you were at the border, where were the people coming from while you were there at the border last week, and what kind of numbers were you seeing last week?
Things, like I said, have changed so that's a picture of Del Rio. The picture of Del Rio in 2021 was like 15,000 people crammed to that one little space. Today they've taken care of it. They've stopped it. We saw a couple families come over, and that's me standing. That's Greg Abbott's fence. His fence consists of train cars like that with razor wire, but with people on it as well. So it's effective, much more effective than no fence at all, which is what we had before. So where was I going with that? We really did not see a lot of numbers. We saw, like I said, there was one family that was on the other bank. We were standing in Mexico at this time, looking across, and there was a family that had waded across, and they were amidst all the concertina wire, which they jump over by just throwing their clothes on the concertina wire and then kind of scramble over. And they were just sitting there with Texas Patrol saying, you can't, we could tell they were talking. It was a long ways away. We couldn't tell. They said that little dialogue might go on for 24 hours, and eventually they will go home. So it went from a virtual flood, like I said, to just one family. Now, if that family had gotten to Federal Border Patrol, they would have waltzed right in. That's the irony of it all. They would have gotten, done what's necessary to get parole, most likely. But since they were dealing with Texas Highway Patrol, they were sort of at a standoff. So we actually didn't really see people streaming in at all. We saw people lining up with their CPB-1 appointments, but that was an orderly line, and that's one thing that the Biden administration is going to say, is that we brought order to the system, but the numbers are still as high, and there's still disorder out. California, they've just shifted the main movement has shifted to California and Arizona, away from Texas.
Are you going to be making a trip out there?
Well, we definitely have a reporter from CIS that's on the ground there, Todd Bensman. Have you?
I know the name.
You know the name, yeah, because he's on Fox a lot. He's on Breitbart a lot, and yes, he covers everything. He'll go there. He is in Darien Gap and basically covering what's going on there, where the whole program is facilitated by our UN. The UN is helping people get through the tough parts of the Darien Gap and into Mexico, into Panama, and then up into Mexico and into the United States. So
how is Texas keeping the feds out of these areas? What, are they just fencing them? What are they doing?
They literally chase them off. I don't know. and it's like it's in courts now. But there's a whole the biggest section in Eagle Pass is a place called Shelby Park, and Shelby Park has been totally taken over by Texas Highway Patrol, and the U.S. Border Patrol is not there. You don't see them anywhere.
Good.
They were run off. They were literally run off. They had done things like, and we talked to the union guy, and we would ask the Border Patrol union guy, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And they had okay answers, but basically one of the bloggers, an Hispanic, who was, super patriotic and super concerned about immigration, said, well, I've got a video of the U.S. Border Patrol coming up with a skid steer and lifting the entire fence up. I mean, not just cutting it so one or two people can get through, because the Border Patrol will say, oh, there was a baby caught in there, and we can get that. All right, I get that. We need to get the baby out, and if it takes cutting, we'll cut it. They would take a skid steer, lift up like 30-foot stretch of the entire fence, and 200 people would go through. That was going on, and it's you would laugh if it wasn't so sad. It would be, something is just this is my U.S. and generally the Border Patrol people are good people. I'm not knocking them at all, but it's clear that when the Texas Highway Patrol took over, things slowed down, and when the Biden administration got the Mexicans to agree to do their part, things really slowed down. So it's clear that Abbott is building better fences. He's putting the floaties in the water so that you can't get across the Rio Grande as easily, and so on and so forth. Of course, they're trying to stop him at every point.
So walls do work, and they're still not sending their best, right?
Walls do work, folks. I am here to tell you they have their limitations, and as they like to say, well, you put up a 30-foot wall and I'll bring a 35-foot ladder. Okay, that's right. But try that en masse. Try to get 1 million people over that 35-foot ladder. You can't. And if we didn't think walls would work, why did we build walls in Iraq? Why are we giving money for building walls in Israel? Why are we encouraging other countries to build walls? It is ridiculous to say that walls don't work. They're not the silver bullet, but they do a massive job of slowing down and allowing then people to do their job.
Yeah. So this is basically a joint effort with the Biden administration and the cartels, right? I mean, our federal government is pretty much in business with the cartels on this. Would that be accurate?
Well, I think it would be hard to go that far. What I heard, and again from a couple very reliable sources, both in the Mexican side and the U.S. side, that of course the cartels run the border. I'll give you a couple examples of that in a minute. But basically, they say that the Mexican state police are the cartels. I've heard this from extremely credible sources more than like three times. They with unasked for advice and say, well, unfortunately, the state police in this state are the cartel, or they're so intermixed you can't tell. The federal troops in federal police in Mexico and the army are not that bad. There is corruption for sure, but it's not like they're functioning hand in hand with the cartel. So I wouldn't go as far as saying the Biden is cooperating with the cartel, but and again, most people felt that the president of Mexico was very I don't want to very, very close to the not going to say beholden to the cartels, but unable to control the cartels. To give you an idea of what that cartel control means, first of all, you pay to get up to the border, and then you pay a little ticket just to cross the border with the cartel. Well, this happened in the last trip I was at a couple of years ago. We were at one of the way stations when Trump's remained in Mexico. People were staying in sort of like holding tanks, if you will, on the Mexican side. And I met a family from Russia. And this guy said, we tried to cross in Douglas, Arizona, and we were stopped by the cartel, not by U.S. Border Patrol, not by authorities on the east side. We were stopped by the cartel. He said that the cartel took him out into the desert, and he thought he was going to be killed, him and his family. And they were a real family, not a fake family. He said, but because I didn't speak Spanish, I didn't speak very good English, I was Russian, they were saying, well, we're not going to create an international incident by killing this guy. He said, I was convinced they were going to kill me. And basically what they did was drop him in the middle of the desert and pointed and said, go cross the border there. Don't cross the border here. And the reason why is because they wanted to run drugs across the border at that time. They were running drugs across. They didn't want any hassle of humans crossing. So, I mean, they literally, it's sometimes you think people are exaggerating when they say, oh, the cartels control the border, but they do. They do. You see this all the time.
Wow.
Now, again, something that I just learned literally just today to show how serious Mexico is now. So this Russian guy, as well as did many people, I met people from all over the world who basically bought a ticket to take a vacation in Mexico. They go to Cancun, they get on a bus, and they come up to the border. It costs them nothing. They didn't ride on a train. They didn't pay $10,000 to a coyote. They went to Cancun, got on a bus, came across the border, and walked across. They may have paid a one-time ticket, a couple thousand, but they didn't do the big money that we hear happens, and that's true. I'm not saying that's not true, but so that's fairly common. And I just talked to a guy today who said he was on a plane from Belarus to Nashville, stopped in Istanbul, and he said they threw off half the Russians because they all had vacation tickets to Mexico. They had a ticket just to Mexico, and Mexico was saying, "Okay, we know what you're doing now, even though it's been going on for a while. We're going to stop. We're going to interdict you, even in the air, as airline passengers." And they threw off about half the plane got thrown off right in Istanbul, and that was thanks to Mexico, because Mexico now is letting on that they know what's going on, even though they knew what was going on all along. And Mexico is doing this probably thanks to pressure and the deals with the U.S.
Right.
So that's the border is chaotic in every single way possible. Another thing is I want to get to stat right on this, so I'm gonna look at my notes. I just don't like spouting. At any rate, I can't find it. Over 3 years, 450 million fatal doses of fentanyl were caught by Texas. Texas has caught over 3 years. Now, that's just at ports of entry. That's not the ones that got away at ports of entry. That's not the ones that went between the ports of entry and went through without any detection at all. So he's saying what we know we caught is 450 lethal doses of fentanyl pills, little one-shot pills. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just we've heard these stats, but to get like a real definitive in a chart from an official is still pretty staggering. And then he says, we don't know what the real number is. It's probably 3 times that, and probably at least that much got through. So,
Let me ask this about the local border communities. How are they pushing back on this? Because when they get people dumped in their streets, and speaking of dumped in the streets, I want to talk about an incident that happened in Tennessee this weekend that you may not know about. But let's talk about the border communities.
Sure. In general, the migrants are moved on. They don't want to hang around the border communities. They're in and they're out. They go to a processing center, which is a tent out in the desert. They leave their fingerprints and they have some biometrics, and then they go on to the local NGO, like Catholic Charities up in San Antonio. Like I said, 800,000 processed by them so far. So the communities there, the people are moving through, but some of the communities have pushed back on and in the dumping, so that like they'll pick up a group and then dump them on the streets of a town somewhere, something like that. That goes on. We know it's happening in New York, what's happening in Chicago, and so on. Well, one county, Webb County in Texas, has passed a law saying, no, you can't dump anybody here. We're waiting to see if it holds up in court. If it does, I think that's going to be quite a precedent for other counties to do. But there is a county specifically, we talked about it, and they said, yes, Webb County in Texas has said, do not stop your bus here. Your bus can keep going to Houston if you want, keep going to San Antonio, but do not stop in Webb County. So there are actions, and like I said, people are fed up enough that they think there's going to be somewhat of a red wave and border communities in Texas. There already is a little bit of one.
Yeah, well, that's what all counties in every state in our country need to do.
Right.
Whether the court approves it or not. I mean, waiting for the court. Forget the court. Forget the court. So one thing, how many do you think, you have any kind of idea over the last few years, how many illegals have come to Tennessee?
I don't. I really don't. I know Tennessee is a fairly attractive spot because just because it's economically booming. So that's part of it. A lot of people are moving to Tennessee. I would be hard pressed to hazard a guess. I'm sure they're getting their fair share. I'm pretty sure they're getting, more than average for the states, because some of the states are not getting a lot, and some are getting more. I'm pretty sure we're up there in this category that's getting more than its fair share.
Right. Well, speaking of dropped in the streets, and like I say, you may not have heard this. This happened Saturday in Dyersburg. Saturday, and I talked about this on the show last night, and had Representative Rusty Grills on with us. Representative Grills was alerted via Facebook that there was a bus unloading illegals and they were taking their suitcases off the bus in a local shopping mall. And so he shows up, and there's some local police there, and they start asking him. Now, understand, they're unloading their baggage. They're not just stopped there.
They're not going in for coffee.
Yeah, so they're unloading their baggage. And so Representative Grills and the police officers start asking them questions. And they do check, and apparently some of them have some sort of visa. I don't know what that really was, but their story was that they were workers, that they were going to Virginia and North Carolina. Well, if you're going to Virginia, North Carolina, you're not going to unload your bags at a local mall. And then they decided to load back up, and they headed towards Union City. Now, somebody local from the Dyersburg area attempted to follow this bus and keep tabs on them. And they did alert Union City, and I think they did make it to Union City, and they were pulled over for some sort of violation. I don't know what the final result was on that bus, but the fact that they were downloading there, that tells me that I think they were probably going to dump them there. If Representative Grills and local law enforcement hadn't intervened and started asking questions, I think that's what happened. Is they got nervous, they got all these questions asked, they loaded their bus back up, and they left. Now, when this person was trying to follow these buses, there were some white vans that kept trying to come in between him and the bus and keep them from getting too close. And we do have the license number of one of those buses.
Wow.
And let me see. And another friend of mine did a little bit of digging, and it's traced back to Mexico. So this bus is from Mexico. And you probably can't read it on the screen, but it gives the name of...
It's probably completely illegal then. I mean...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it says, I think, and I can't read that right from here, but it's, I think, Chavez, Mexico. Chavez, Mexico is where that license was traced back to. So,
wow, good work.
Yeah, and so I don't know where they ended up, but, we know that they've brought them into Tennessee before, and so they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And
the children. Yeah. There's the children a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, the children have just grown in number. I did follow up on the children, and Tennessee's getting about 5,000 children alone. Children.
Wow.
And those children, the media is going to say, oh, they're just joining their parent who came up. That's not true. Less than half, only about half are joining a parent. The rest are joining a sibling or a distant relative. And the last time I looked, about 15% of the children are going into our foster care system. So they go into our already in place foster care system. If you, as a foster care provider, can speak Spanish, you get more money. So there's definitely a money racket aspect to some of foster care. I hate to say it, but it's true. And we've heard stories of people going into foster care until they age out, and then they're back into the street. We've heard of unaccompanied alien children going into American foster care, and as soon as they hit age 18, the person's not making money in foster care anymore and throws them out on the street. Wow. That's definitely happening.
Now, to those people that are bringing the children, they're sponsors. They don't necessarily have to be citizens, right?
Nope.
And
absolutely not. In fact, most of them are not citizens. Most of them are not citizens. Is the fact of the matter, and they don't check, and they don't. It's not an actionable item. I mean, the Biden administration's word on that is merely being illegally present in the United States is not a crime. They're not treating that as a crime. They're waiting for more serious crime, felony crimes and stuff like that. But mere presence is no longer considered a crime in the way they're interpreting the law.
So they're allowing these sponsors, not even citizens, no requirement to be a citizen, and they're not really checking them. Just okay. Do you? I guess other than the fact that you have the financial ability, I assume. But they're,
I don't even think that the kid comes over. Like I said, many of them come over without any sponsor, and then they go into the foster care system. And there have been many. We've heard that 80,000 kids have been lost track of. That's probably an overstatement, because just because the government can't find you doesn't mean you're in danger or that something's happened. But we know that they've turned kids over to the sponsor, and the kid has cringed. The kid has, looked scared, and they take them away. It doesn't matter. And we know there have been instances like that for sure. The kid will come over with a phone number tattooed on his arm. They call the number, and they'll deliver the kid to that person. They do very cursory checks. Is it really a person? They've delivered many kids to the same address, so they don't check very closely. So many kids to the same address that you can't possibly be a relative.
When you say they, who is they? You mean the NGOs?
Well, the kid, yes, the NGOs. The kids are not treated as in immigration. A kid is going to be moved right away into our Department of Health and Human Services. They go into the human services side of the house. They're no longer like DHS or immigration. They're in the welfare system, basically. They work through their contractors, their NGOs, to find placement and then deliver the placement. That's it. There's very, very little follow-on care once they've been delivered. Very little follow-on care.
And
follow-on auditing.
With the foster parent program in Tennessee, and I'm sure other states, if you want to be a foster parent, you've got to go through all kinds of hoops and training.
Right.
I mean, it's a royal pain. And yet these people come over and they just get to sponsor these kids, and we allow these NGOs to just send them there. That's
right. They claim to be and they don't do DNA testing, but that's what's amazing to me. Especially if the kid expresses fear, wouldn't you at least insist on a DNA check to see? No, they don't. They don't do forensic investigation of the claim that the kid is under 18. They've been full adults in their 20s coming through saying they're under 18 and they want to go into the unaccompanied child system, and they let them through. So it's quite unbelievable, and it's having a huge impact on all of us.
Well, Don, thanks for all you do and for all this information. I appreciate you coming on. Great information.
Sure, glad to come on.
Definitely have you back. I can't say you brought any good news, but you brought good information, and we appreciate that.
something good could happen, but it
Yeah.
would have to be, this current administration has to go.
Absolutely.
It's so disappointing that they couldn't push through impeaching Mayorkas. Mayorkas has stated that his goal is not to protect us or to keep people out. It's to let people in and to fight for those people. He stated that over and over and over again. We want orderly pathways for anyone that wants to come in. That's his goal. And,
states have to step up too. It's obvious that our federal government is leading this invasion. Our states have to stop being hampered by this notion that, well, we got to see what the court's going to. No, they have a responsibility to stand up for us.
Huge pull factors. Driver's licenses, which is a state issue. We could stop. We give them driver's licenses. Yeah. Like you said, federal professional licenses, chance for welfare, all that kind of stuff. States could do more for sure. Absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks once again for coming on. You have a great night and hope to have you back.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch the program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell so you never miss a show. The Tennessee Informer is also available to listen to as an audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and other popular podcast platforms. Just do a search for the Tennessee Informer and you'll find all of our shows, or you can find them on our website at tninformer.com. While you're there, take a minute to sign up for the weekly newsletter to stay up to date. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. Just search for @TNInformer. Please share us with your friends. This Thursday, April 25th, our guests will be Bernadette Pager and Amy Miller from the Children's Health Defense and Reform Pharma, here to talk about their mission and a special event they have coming up this Saturday in Columbia, Tennessee. Next Monday, our guest will be Sarah Maccabee, a J6 wife from Williamson County. Sarah will tell us what happened to her husband and about the organizations she co-founded to help other J6 families. And on Tuesday, our guest will be David J. Baldwin, a retired FBI agent, here to tell us about his experiences and concerns with what's happening in the FBI now. Hope you'll join us. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.